Before we get into our training video, if by chance you found this video as a recommended video on YouTube, this training video is actually part of an extensive CorelDRAW for Beginners training series from AdvancedTshirts.com. We have developed dozens of videos, and we also have available on our website downloadable work-along files that you can work with in CorelDRAW while you're working through the training videos. Easily the best and fastest way to learn. If these videos are helpful to you, please take a second to add a like to the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can be notified when we upload new video content. And of course, in the comment section below, you can post your questions or your CorelDRAW video tutorial requests. In this session, we're going to go over the Multiple Objects Properties bar. This is a very important session. These are very important tools in CorelDRAW when it comes to our object shaping and creation in CorelDRAW, and these are known as shaping commands. We have combine, weld, trim, intersect, simplify, front minus back, back minus front, and create boundary. Once again, very important tools. You want to practice with these. There's not too many of them. They're pretty easy to get a hold of. Some practice and you'll have them nailed down with no problem at all. I'm going to start with combine. Combine will convert all objects to one object. Any place objects overlap will be knocked out. Color or fill is inherited from the last object selected. If I take these three rectangles here and I'll hold down Shift and select all three of them, you'll notice that now my multiple objects properties bar has come up in my property bar. If I come over here and click on combine, the objects will be combined and the new object will inherit the properties of the last object selected. In this case, red fill, black outline. If I hit Control Z, select this red rectangle, hold down Shift, select this one, we'll go to the multiple object property bar, select the green, come up, click on combine. Now we have a new object that has the green fill and the black outline because the green fill object with a black outline was the last object selected. So that's combine. Let's scroll down and we'll take a little bit of a deeper look at this. If I look at this object here, I've got a two object lion vector, kind of like an icon. And here I've got the same one set up with multiple objects. Now if I lasso this entire line icon, I'll just duplicate this. Right click here and then I combine that. I'll now have the black properties from the black background. It was selected last, but where you see white, there's nothing, just the page background showing through. Zoom in and take a closer look at this one. Here I have the lion broken down into many different pieces. They're all different separate pieces. If I lasso everything, I can see 7 objects selected on layer 1. With all of the objects selected, even though there's many of them, they'll be combined to the black in the background. So if I hit combine, I'll get the same result. Now had the last object been one of the blue ones, I would have the blue properties. Now here I have the lion, and I'll left click here and we have once again 7 objects selected. Now I can select the eye, the purple, the chin here. I'll come down here into these 2 black objects, holding down Shift, selecting all of them. The last thing I will select will have the blue properties. I'll combine that and now I'll have all of that converted to one object or curve with the black object or curve in the background. So that is combine and how it works from the multiple objects property bar. We'll zoom out, pulling back on the center mouse here. Let's take a look at Weld. Weld will convert all the selected objects to one object. Overlapping of objects will not be knocked out. Color and fill will be inherited from the last selected object. We have the 3 triangles here. We'll start it by selecting one of the red ones. We'll hold down Shift on our keyboard, select the green, select the red, come up and select Weld, and you can see one object created from the 3 objects inheriting the properties for the object from the last selected object. Control Z. If I go select the red, hold down Shift, select the other red rectangle, then the green, then weld. Now I have the green object from the three objects as one curve in CorelDRAW. Now this comes in very handy when you're doing things like vector tracing and so on. And here I have a light bulb that I've been tracing. And I can select all of the objects, and let's say I want to select this last and get rid of the red outline. I'll come here and right click for no outline. I'll select that last. I'll go through, holding down Shift, select my objects, or I could lasso them, select and deselect things. I'll select this, then this rectangle with the rounded edges, then the circle or the ellipse, then come up, click on Weld, get one black object. Now there's a vector object back here that's part of the design. It's behind the black, obviously, because it's filled with white and has a red outline. And to bring that forward, I'll just go to Control and Start, and that'll bring that forward. Right click and I'll get rid of the outline on that, and now my trace of the light bulb would be finished with the weld operation in CorelDRAW. And the same thing here with the lion parts. I've got this lion here and we've got multiple parts. I'll go through and select the chin, then hold down Shift, select the facial area, then the blue area, and I can select weld or combine here, but we'll go with weld, and that will inherit the last selected object's properties, and we'll have welded those objects into one object. So that's how the welding works. Scroll out, and next on our list is trim. Trim will trim or cut out the shape of one object from the other object or selection of objects. The trim will be applied to the last selected object. Use trim when you want to keep the objects you're going to trim with. So let's take a look. I've got the three rectangles here. I'll select the red one and hold on Shift to select the other red one. Then I'll select the green one. Then I'll come up here to trim, and you'll see that. Looks like the shape of a T. And I did that here with this object and this object, and you can see the effect there. And I was able to keep the object even though I made the trim, and here's the results. And like I said, I'll use trim usually when I want to keep the selected object, and I'll zoom in here, that I'm going to trim from. And you can see the result here. I took the circle, trimmed the polygon on the outside, then reduced the size of it, brought it in, and got a different look for this design. I'll zoom out, we'll lasso this and select this. We'll move this over here to the right. I'll lasso and select this. I'll bring this over to the right also and duplicate it with a single right click and release that. Then I'll select my ellipse on layer 1, and this is a polygon. Now I'm going to lose the shape properties and go to a curve when I do this, so I won't have a polygon left anymore. I will have a curve, so I won't be able to work with it as a polygon once I do this. I'll select the ellipse. We'll zoom in just a little bit here. Then with the ellipse or circle selected, I'll left click on the polygon, holding down Shift. Then I'll come up here and click on trim. Now what happened there is that I still have the object even though it's filled with white. I'll click off, click on, you can see it's filled with white. I'll go fill that with black. Now I want to resize that, so I'm going to go to the scale handle and hold down Shift so I can scale to the center smaller, and you'll see as I bring that down it'll keep going to the center so that I can get that look right there, just like I have here. Now I can go to view, because I can't see the other objects. View, wireframe. I can select the text here, hold down shift, select the text, and select the stars. I'll go back to view and enhanced, and then I'll just left click in the color palette on black to change those to black, and you can see how the trim worked, and I was able to make the adjustment to the design I was looking for without losing any objects or welding the objects together. So that's how trim works. Zooming out with the center mouse wheel, next we have Intersect. Intersect will create a new object from a selection of objects based on the areas intersecting areas of the object. Let's take a look at that. I've got that over here with the two rectangles. I'll go to the zoom tool, just zoom right in here to this area, and I'll go back to the pick tool. If I select these three objects, I'm going to get objects where they intersect. So I'll come up here and click on Intersect, and now you can see those are the objects I got where the objects were intersecting. If we go to View and Wireframe, we can see those two places where they were intersecting. I'll hit Control Z and we'll go back and we'll see this is where they were intersecting based on the last object selected. So if I select this, I select this, and then I select this, and then I go to Intersect, I get the objects from the last object selected where the objects intersect. We'll go back to View and Enhanced. Now I use this a lot when I'm setting up and cropping bitmaps for custom shapes with my bitmaps, or cropping them to a custom shape. For example, some of the images that I've used in the documentation for this training. I have the screen capture of the image. I created two rectangles. I welded those together. Now I can select this curve shape, hold down shift, select the bitmap, go to Intersect, click that, you'll see that change. Now on top will be the original rectangle. I won't need that anymore, so I can delete that. And now I'll have the intersect from the bitmap with the custom shape that I would use in the setup of my training documentation. So that's how intersect works. And I'll delete that. Let's go to the next page and we'll zoom out, come up here to the top. This is page 2. Here I want to take a look at Simplify. Simplify will knock out any areas where objects overlap, simplifying the objects. And we'll take a look at that with the rectangles, and then we'll get into some more here. So left click, hold down, and I have 4 objects. If I come up to Simplify, you can see now I'll have 4 objects, but they've been cropped and trimmed to fit side by side instead of on top of each other. And I'll hit Control Z and go back. And we'll just take these apart so we can see what we're dealing with before we simplify. There's a rectangle, there's a rectangle, and then there's this shape. So I'll hit Control Z again and go back. Now I'll left click, select everything, come up and click on Simplify. Now when we take this apart, we'll see that instead of objects stacked on top of each other, they're now next to each other. And we can see how that changed based on Simplify, which comes in handy when you're doing things like cutting vinyl and things like that, where you want to cut the exact object and be able to weed it out and put it back together as a vinyl sign or something like that. Next we'll come out and take a look at back minus front and front minus back. Get my zoom tool and we'll zoom right in here. This is one of my go-to tools for so many things. Back minus front and front minus back will trim either the front or back object of the selected objects with the other selected objects. The other objects that made the trim will be deleted. Now here you can see a minus result. Now I'll select the red object here, hold down Shift, and select the green object. Now I'm going to come up here and hover, and you can see here is back minus front and front minus back. If I click on front minus back, I get the minus result. I'll hit Control Z and go back. Now if I click on back minus front, then I'll trim the green object and the red will be deleted. For example, when I'm doing a trace or some design work. And here I have the light bulb again. I know I'm working with a lot of basic objects, but we're working through CorelDRAW for beginners, kind of keeping things fundamental, but we'll get into more, I guess you could say, advanced things later in the training series. Now here I have this set up. Now I want to create this white arch that's in the trace of this light bulb. So I create two circles, different sizes. I'll go ahead and see where this object is and select this object because I know it's on top. Select that, the larger circle, come up and click back minus front, and now I've got my object. And I will have completed my trace when I take the red outline off of everything. So you can see how handy that is. You can do a trim and then get rid of the other object at the same time. I'll zoom out and now we'll take a look at create boundary, and I use this all the time as well. And I'll go to my zoom tool. We'll come right in here so we can get a good look at this and see how it works. Go back to the pick tool or hit the space bar on my keyboard. Here I have the three rectangles. If I lasso and select those and come up to create boundary, we create a new object that is a boundary around the objects I have selected, and there you can see the results. Now this comes in very handy when I'm working on many different things. Here I was able to take this graphic, create a boundary, then create a contour, then create a block shadow. So we'll take a look at that. I'll delete this object and then I'll just lasso these and delete them. I'll lasso this, select it, left click, hold down, right click one time to duplicate. Now with all of this selected, 237 objects, I'll go to create boundary. And that'll create my boundary. And I can go to the center point here and grab that, and I can see that. So that's my boundary. And it will be on top by default. Now I can go to the contour tool, left click, and start to pull that out and create the contour that I'm going to use to create the block shadow. I'm going to change my contour from metered to rounded, and you can see that cleans that up a little bit. We'll get into the contour tool later. I'm going to right click here and select break contour group apart, and then I'll right click and go order to back of page. I'll fill that with white. Then I'll go to the block shadow tool through the interactive tools here, left click, make sure I got that selected, left click, there we go, pull down, and now I've created a block shadow working with the create boundary tool to get that object around all of those different objects. And I can come up here and we'll expand that or work on that based on the outline. So you can see how that could save me a lot of time as opposed to going through and welding objects together or trying to trace around the outside of the graphic. I can just simply create a boundary, create the contour, and then add the block shadow. And I can make adjustments to that. Let's see, I want to bring this over here just a little bit more. Line that up just like that. So we'll wrap here concerning the multiple objects property bar And once again, like I said, these are very important tools, so you want to do some practice with these and get the work-along files from the website. You can download those for free. And get familiar with working with the shaping commands in the multiple objects property bar. Once again, we'll wrap here and we'll continue in our next video session.